Jos Buttler not prepared to throw the towel in, Harmy. He says he's the right man to carry on leading the team, but there's a crisis. There is an absolute crisis at the moment. So what do? Start the clear out now, or do it gradually and just try and make sure you're actually in Pakistan in 2 years' time?
The answer to Jos is the right man to take England forward. Whether Matthew Mott's the right coach or not, I'm still to be convinced. But Jos Buttler, for me, is the right man to take England forward. I look at the rebuild. There's going to be a massive rebuild. I've mentioned 8 players there played in the 2019 World Cup. As I look at the group, and you go down the route. Yeah, Bairstow's had a poor tournament. He really has. By Johnny's standards, he will be looking over his shoulder. Do we go? If we're not in Pakistan in 2025, then you probably are looking at Bairstow, Milan, Root, Stokes, Moeen Ali, Chris Wokes, David Willey, Adil Rashid, Mark Wood. That's 10 out of 11 players probably not going to get to the next World Cup in 2027. And then you look and think, well, if they're not going to get to 2025, if 2025 is off the table, and they're not going to get to the 2027 World Cup, is Jos Buttler, because he's going to be 37 by then, is he the right man to take England forward? So they're the question marks for Rob Key and the ECB. I think I'd do it gradually. I'd want to try and rebuild with Buttler in my unit, and I'm sure we'll come on to central contracts later. So from that point of view, I think there's 1 or 2 will be looking over the shoulders. I don't see Ben Stokes playing any more 50-over cricket after this tournament. I don't see Moeen Ali playing any more 50-over cricket after this tournament. Does Chris Wokes look to concentrate on just playing Test match cricket, potentially the franchise route around the world? Because there's been question marks over Chris. They've given Mark Wood a 3-year contract. Where's his body going to be? Do England turn around and say, right, we're going to play him in 2020 cricket and in Test match cricket to try and preserve everything we need to get out of him? So them conversations are needed to be had. David Willey hasn't got a contract, so ECB are saying he's not going to be playing 50-over cricket after this tournament. So there's 5, possibly 6 that just needs a refresh going into what is going to be a nice little series in the Caribbean at the end of the year. And for me, Jos Buttler takes that team forward. I'm still yet to be convinced about the coach, though, unfortunately.
Okay, well, we'll talk about contracts a little bit later on. But final point for this section. Now, Owen Morgan said on Sky TV that he thought something was going on in the change room. The implication being that there was some unhappiness there. That comment was put to Matthew Mott at a press conference, and he said, well, I'll have to talk to Owen about that. It's all a bit mysterious, but seeing as you're in the mood for dealing with controversial subjects, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, my eyebrows raised straight away. But I also thought there must be something in there. There's got to be. We've mentioned on this program and on following on about the degree of freedom other coaches that have been successful with England. Brendan McCullum, Trevor Bayliss, 2 coaches where when they've got their glasses on sitting on the balcony, you've got to poke them to see if they're awake and watching the cricket because they're so laid back and so relaxed about the way the game's going. This coach Matthew Mott seems to be a little bit different. I don't want to label, not throwing Matthew Mott under the bus and saying it's all his fault, because it's not. These players need to own responsibility of the ownership of these performances. But you've got to set an environment, if it's been different, if it's drastically different, you will see kickbacks, especially against senior players. And I've made no secret that my relationship with Duncan Fletcher wasn't the greatest at the end. And then Peter Moores came in, and I think the world of Morsey as a person, and I think he's an excellent coach. But when he came into the England job, he tried to change things. He tried to put his stamp on it, which was the right thing to do. But unfortunately, the senior players in there weren't ready for that change. Didn't understand didn't need what Peter Moores was trying to give, and whether we're seeing something different, something the same as that, as Matthew Mott is trying to either not do or do which has upset what's gone on in a successful unit. And then you've got senior players rebelling against it, going, well, there was nothing wrong with it. It wasn't broken. Why are you trying to fix it? And sometimes, and players are stubborn, and players are stubborn. And when you have a clash like that, you might not feel as though you're not truly at it, but it just takes 1 or 2 performances, and then all of a sudden confidence goes. And when confidence goes, you end up being bottom of the table in a World Cup, having played 6 games with Afghanistan and the Netherlands above you. So something has got to be going on inside that dressing room.
On AM, on DAB, via the talkSPORT app and on your smart speaker. talkSPORT.